Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I've been under the weather for 2 weeks and I can't stop my life anymore. So if I cough, I'll probably have to mute myself.
Good.
I'm so grateful that you are open to doing this. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm grateful for the invitation.
I'm going to go ahead and get started and kick off with the first question I ask every single guest, which is hello, hi, who are you? How do we know each other? And where can people find you online?
Okay. Well, I'm Ferrell Fellows, and I'm a real estate broker and developer based out of Dallas, Texas. And we just connected through my book that you picked up at a Black bookstore called Blacklit here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And people can find me online at my website, comaclubcommunity.com, where I have a bunch of information about real estate investing, manuals, and all sorts of guidebooks to help people that are new or first generation property owners and investors. And also, if you want to follow my personal work, my company, Kingdom Legacy Company, hosts a bunch of videos and photos and reels of all of the real estate development work we do here in the Dallas area.
And I will say, I actually grabbed your book right as I was leaving Blacklit. It was the last book that I picked up, and it stood out to me. Your cover is beautiful, as are
Thank
you. And what I think really inspired me, you're choosing the word kingdom for your enterprise seems so fitting because yes, building a kingdom as in a literal building of developments and real estate and all of that, right? But then taking it a little bit further from a spiritual standpoint, I was really drawn to you when I opened the book and saw that we had so much in common. Here you are, a woman of faith. You're living in Dallas. You recently published a book, and you're in a space, real estate, that I am just ushering into. We'll say as a neophyte, and so your book, which is titled "We Must Own," really, really called out to me as a Black woman. A little bit about me and my background. I grew up in Southern California, and my parents were able to provide a very abundant life, but that did come at the expense of always being renters. So to this day, neither of my parents have owned real estate property, and neither have I. And that is a bit of a source of, I will say, shame, pain. And it took a long time for me to get to a place of, okay, as long as I keep living in that shame and pain, I'm never going to make the changes that I need to. And while I don't know a lot about real estate because I didn't grow up with parents who are paying a mortgage, what I do want to do is be able to find ways to build my own wealth through real estate. And this is why, your book, We Must Own, as a rallying cry for first generation owners, really spoke to me. And I think, moreover, where it is relevant, even if someone isn't a first generation owner, just a first time owner, having that empowerment, knowing that we are operating in a significantly different market than perhaps our parents were if they were in a position to be able to own. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you were compelled to empower others within the real estate space? What maybe led your passion? Why development is so important to you as a broker today?
Yeah, so let me just start off and say the title We Must Own. I chose the word we because I wanted, when you think of real estate, I wanted people to realize that it's inclusive of all of us. It has historically been reserved for the elite, for the wealthy, the high net worth. They've pretty much governed our country based on their control of the real estate of this great land we call America. However, we means those that feel that they don't earn a high income, those that may feel undereducated, those who may have a criminal background, those that may, feel that women don't have the same rights or same opportunities as men. We includes those in a minority race. We is those that feel that they didn't have parents that taught them about real estate and ownership. We is creating this inclusion of real estate that is really, I would say, democratizing real estate so everyone can have access to it. The reality is that real estate is a human right. It is a universal human right across the world that we all have the right to own land and property. However, many people believe, based on the way that our rights have been suppressed, that we don't have a right. And so I just encourage people through my book to take advantage of the privilege that we have to own while we still have it. Because who knows, in our lifetime, those rights might not be available to us. But also, I wanted to address your point about shame, because I'm really proud of you for admitting that. And I find that people of all income levels, all education levels, have an ignorance about real estate that they are in some ways afraid to admit. And so we stay behind the ball because we don't have conversations. We don't say, hey, teach me about how you got that property, or teach me about how you flipped that house. We just admire other people and like their posts, but we don't take the time to learn or to admit that we don't understand. So I'm really proud of you for saying, that you have that generational shame, but you don't have anything to be ashamed of, because we all are in the real estate industry, all of us, whether we own it or we rent it. I try to tell people, hey, where do you live? Do you live in a house? Do you live in an apartment? You're in the real estate market. You're already in it. You live in it. Where do you go to school? You're in the real estate market. Where do you work? In an office? You're in a real estate market. Where do you walk? Everywhere you walk, everywhere your footsteps is ground that's owned by somebody. So you're so familiar with real estate, you just don't know that you are. And that should take away any fear of entering the real estate market, because you're already in it. If you know how to pay rent, you know how to pay a mortgage. It's the same concept, just the different end person that's being paid. So you shouldn't have a fear of entering the real estate market. It's just taking the time to educate yourself to be in a dominant position within the real estate market. So that's some of the motivation why I wrote this book, and why training others is critically important. I started to see in my own community where I live, there's the blight, there's the poverty, there's the drug addiction, there's the prostitution and the sex trafficking, and those are different. There's, this history of addiction to drugs and alcohol. There's the trap houses, and then, you go a couple miles down the street and there's the mansions. And we see that a lot in communities across America. And so I saw that living in my community, right outside my bedroom, there was a homeless encampment. And every day when I would come home, I would see the same people, and I would give them money because I have compassion for the homeless. But after about a year, I realized these people are not being helped. This money is not changing anything in my community, and there has to be a better strategy to house the homeless and to address the addiction. And in my community, there was over 110 liquor stores within a 5 mile radius. Now, how do you have that many liquor stores in one community? And what type of response or effect do you think will happen to a community over several decades when you put that much toxic business within a small radius? So I started to observe these, what I would call social injustices in my community, economic injustices. And I realized that no one else was going to do anything about it. And I also realized that my community was very reflective of many Black communities across this country. It really wasn't a unique problem, but it's a problem that no one has really seen how to solve. And so as I studied the problem, I realized that it's really fundamentally connected to the governance of the community and the ownership of the community. And if we had different owners, we would have different outcomes. So if you've ever heard of the term slumlords are people that invest in in communities based on the land value being cheap, property value being low, and they don't ever really have an intention to build the community or to do anything positive. They just want to take or extract wealth from the community and leave it in disrepair. And that's what my community was based on. At that time, 75% of the properties were owned by absentee owners or investment companies, and only 25% of the houses or properties were owned by actual residents that lived there. And so you can see that there was this disconnect between the love and the concern for the neighborhood and the outcomes that we were getting. And all of that was my motivation. I just started to look around and say, what can I do to change things for the better? And so I hope I answered the question, but it was really that pain that I felt when I looked at the outcomes of the people that lived all around me. And I realized that if I owned the properties, that I would manage them differently. I would not allow the type of behaviors and criminal activity that was just prevalent. I would not as an owner. And I also realized that the owners have more power to govern and to really enforce rules than the police do. So if we're looking to some other outside force to change things in our communities, the real answer is to own property. And out of that, I went on a journey to own as much property in my community as I possibly could. And I'm still going. And I have seen a direct correlation between my ownership and positive change in my community. I've been commended by the mayor and the city manager of my city of Dallas. I have been written about in the Dallas Morning News and other newspapers. And I've done nothing but own property. It's not like I, legislated anything. I just bought property and changed the way that the properties were governed, in a sense. And that changed outcomes in my neighborhood. And that's what I want people to learn in my book, that if you own property, you not only have the power to change your own life, but you also have the power to change your neighborhoods and your communities and have a direct impact on everything that's around your properties. And you can do it even as someone like yourself that says you don't feel that you have the financial acumen to do it.
Yes. And I do want to expand a little bit more on what you just said about being able to govern without legislation, without police, we'll say interference, being able to govern within a neighborhood. Can you give a concrete example of what that might look like in terms of a betterment of the community?
Yeah. So this is just one example, but we purchased a multifamily apartment building that's on the most dangerous corner in the state of Texas. And I own that property. Across the street from that property and all around it is organized crime, drug sales, and all sorts of other nefarious activities that go that it really feels like a lawless society where you can commit public crimes, shootings, and even murders without any consequence and without the police even showing up to respond to police calls. And this has gone on so long that when I attempted to buy the property, I was told by several people in my community that nothing would ever change and that it was an impossible situation to fix. So we can have these persistent problems that are so enduring that the people that need the change the most don't even believe that change is possible anymore. But fortunately for me, I'm not jaded, and I look at everything from what God is showing me that it can be and not what it's been. So when I saw the property, I saw a safe, beautiful, dignified housing complex that would provide affordable living for people in my community, including seniors and single moms and people that were re-entering society. And I saw a place that could be redeemed and restored and become, a great investment. And so I bought the property. But that didn't change the environment around us. And we had opportunities to go sit with the police department and sit with the city attorney's office and sit with the city councilmen. And they all just had no answers, no solutions. They're just like, yeah, we know the thousands of police calls. We know that there's been a murder every week since forever. Like they know, but there's no strategy or no wisdom on how to solve it. So they just allow things to continue in the status quo. So after a few months of us owning it, we were able to come up with a property management strategy to eliminate all of the drug dealers that were operating drug houses within our apartment complex. We also were able to identify anyone that was operating criminal activity on site and evict them. And through using the legal process of eviction, we were able to take our property that was an absolute nuisance to be in a quiet place where our residents are like, I don't even recognize this place anymore. I don't know what, everything changed since you all bought it. And we went back to the police department to have a follow-up meeting, and they stated, you all just need to keep buying more property because we haven't had any police activity at that site since you all bought it. And so that's just one example of how ownership and management can change the outcomes and the experiences that we have in our neighborhoods, because when you own something, you have the authority over that territory. And when you have the authority over that territory, you determine what the rights are of that place. You determine, what you will allow and what you won't allow. You have dominion over it, and you essentially control what can and cannot happen on your property. And so it's up to you to determine how or who you allow to live there. And so we've seen that go the wrong way, where people were like, we don't want Blacks and we don't want Hispanics in our neighborhoods, right? They use their right of ownership to essentially go against the rights of others. But if you look at it in a positive perspective, as an owner, you can also use your rights to empower your community and to really govern in a way that will create a transformational outcome for the people that live and patronize your establishments.
First of all, that's a really beautiful story. I never thought of ownership within that context in the terms of truly creating effective change from the inside. The eviction of individuals, I do wonder where they landed, like what neighborhood it shifted to, because I'm sure that there is a shift more than a complete eradication, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
We always give our tenants the opportunity to change. So when we come into a property, we'll announce this is the rules of engagement, so to speak. This is how we operate. This is who we are. We're very proud to say we're a Christian real estate development company. We operate under this value system. This is our goal to improve the community. If you are in alignment with that vision and those goals, you're welcome to stay. However, we do not allow criminal activity. We do not allow violence, family violence, any of those sort of things, drug activity, because we want to set an atmosphere that's reflective of the kingdom. That's the word in our name, but we're establishing the rules of our kingdom. And so we give people the opportunity to fall in line. However, those that refuse to change or to abide by the rules will then go through a legal process to find somewhere else that they feel more comfortable living out their lives the way that they choose to live. And so I just want to encourage people to understand that you can't necessarily change the hearts of men. You can pray for them, but you still have a duty to your community to operate your properties in a way that will be in the best interest of all and not just that particular individual.
I loved in your book where you said, I have survived the uncharted territory of being a Black woman real estate developer in the city of Dallas and have lived to tell about it. Did you grow up in Texas, or, as you look at the transformation of Dallas as a city, North Texas as an area, can you talk a little bit more about what this vibrant city has to offer real estate entrepreneurs compared to other markets?
If you just do any research on the city of Dallas, you'll see that this city has been ranked in the top 5 cities for investment in real estate over the last, I would say, 5 or more years. I was married in Frisco 11 years ago. It was farmland. No one in my family knew how to get to our wedding venue. They were scratching their heads like, where did you pick this place? We've never heard of this location. Now Frisco is where the Dallas Cowboys headquarters is. And there's highways, and it's a complete, fully built city that's been developed over an 11-year period. So if you think about the pace of development in the city of Dallas, is constantly expanding. The borders of our city are expanding, and highway development, interstate development is increasing. And so Texas, in particular Dallas, has just been a very ideal place for corporations, for investors, and all of those economic factors go together to create a great market for real estate investing. I do want to say that we are a bit prideful as well. And so we always need to realize that we're at the mercy of God. And as a result of that, the great wealth in this state and in this city, it needs to be used and distributed more equitably. I see a great divide in my city of the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty. And I get to exist in both worlds. I get to live in a community of extreme poverty, and I get to sit at the boardroom tables of some of the wealthiest elite individuals of my city. And I get to be an advocate for there to be equity shared amongst both sides, where there can be a more equally distributed plate of wealth, instead of allowing the hungry to starve while other people are gluttons, over consuming and not thinking about their brothers. And so, yeah, that's just my feedback for my city. It's a great place to invest, but if you come here, do right by the people in this city.
Amen. I absolutely love the community, and specifically the power of Dallas. I mean, my last episode, I got to speak to that a little bit, from, the foster care system and how Dallas takes care of our children in a way that we don't see in the rest of the nation. And so I have such a tremendous amount of pride about Dallas, and all of this insight that you offered only furthers that. Moving on to, I do want to touch upon passive investments, because I think that a lot of people hear real estate and the first thing they're thinking of is owning their own homestead, right? We'll say the house with the white picket fence and the dog and the family. I think the next thing that people might think of is some type of commercial real estate. So a really big Goldman Sachs building. And then the other one that some people may know is like this house hacking idea, this idea of owning your own homestead and then renting out a room within your home, and or possibly doing an Airbnb situation. And then there are, of course, more active tactics like flips and burrs. But I think one of the misconceptions about real estate in general is that there are so many strategies and tactics. And I love that your book makes it really digestible to understand that. But looking at someone, we'll use myself as a profile, right? I'm a single woman. I do not want the responsibility of owning my own home. Does that mean I just stop and I don't play in the real estate game? Or where can someone such as myself still participate in real estate?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think that there is an investment strategy for everyone. And so I encourage people to educate themselves on all the different opportunities and ways that you can be involved in the real estate market. Remembering that you're already in the real estate market, you already have responsibility. You're just on the other side of someone's balance sheet and someone's P&L. Typically, people that have limited time would want to go toward a more moderate or passive investment strategy where they can determine their engagement in the investment, or they don't want to be involved at all and they're just simply putting capital into an investment and then reaping a return when that project or when that investment pays a return, if ever. And so some of those strategies would be investing in a REIT, a real estate investment trust. That is similar to investing in stock. So people that are experienced with stock investing, stock trading, might tend to invest in a REIT because it operates similarly, and you can purchase real estate investment trust shares through a stock exchange similar to any other company. And so that's a great model for those that may want to invest even as little as $500 into shares of a company that then goes out to invest in commercial real estate and builds portfolios of malls and restaurants and retail strips, and then collects cash flow on those investments and pays a portion of that money collected back out to its shareholders annually. That's the easy one.
You just said something really interesting. You said that as little as $500. I have been told by several REITs myself that their minimum investment is anywhere between 50 to 75, sometimes even $100,000. So that's a pretty big jump between 500 and 50. What would be a better way to find a REIT that can better align with my financial outputs?
Yeah, I'll have to grab my book because I don't have it in front of me. But I did do a study of different REITs that are available for investment for small dollar entry points. And so I just recommend grabbing my book and reading that. And then I can double back and give you some recommendations that you can add into the write-up. But I'll say also crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is another model that will allow you to start off as either an equity investor or funding the debt on a project. And those entry points vary based on the project and the sponsor and the amount that they'll allow you to invest. And so that's a great model for those that want to be a part of something bigger, but you don't want the responsibility of managing it. You won't have any direct day-to-day management or involvement in the project, but you'll be able to see its progress and get reports. And as it performs, if it performs, you'll be able to receive a return on your money. Typically with debt, you'll get a fixed payment, and that'll be based on an interest rate that's offered with the initial offering. And you'll be able to become the bank to that investment sponsor, funding their investment and then waiting to receive waiting to receive a return based on the agreement that you made. And then finally, I would say consider being an equity investor in a deal, such as a syndication or finding someone like myself that's out doing individual projects and you just want to be a part of it. With one of my deals, I raised equity from 11 different people that are within my community. I wanted to give an opportunity for the parents and the neighbors and the small business owners to say that they own something in our neighborhood. And so I reached out to my inner network of friends and family and said, hey, this is a project that I'm working on, a coffee shop, a restaurant, and a fitness center. Do you all want to put up any equity to own shares in this project? And 11 people said yes, which means that now they're passive investors in a project in their neighborhood that they don't have any direct management over, but they get the pride of ownership. They get to patronize a coffee shop that they own a share of the building. So you can be involved in real estate in that passive way by being an equity investor or by lending debt, where I could borrow money and agree to a promissory note to repay that money to an individual who operates as a private lender to me to fund my investment deal. So I would just encourage anyone that does that strategy to have trust and to properly vet the person that you're investing in, because you're not just investing in the deal, you're investing in the person that's managing the deal. And so don't get caught up in big ideas, because swindlers are really good at sales. What you want to do is you want to evaluate the integrity of the person that's leading the deal. You want to only invest what you can afford to lose. And you want to really educate yourself on the opportunity and get your legal advisors or your financial advisors to review any paperwork before you contribute into a real estate project that you don't fully understand.
I think that last part is really important as well, and can get overlooked and lead to messes. I love that. Thank you so much for that. I'm learning a lot too. This is great. In our catch up before this call, you had mentioned having 11 companies. First of all, I love 11 now, because now I'm seeing 11. You had 11 investors in the equity, and you mentioned owning 11 companies and having some failed businesses. Were these all in the real estate space? Can you talk a little bit about where you're able to create success out of setbacks and turn that setback into a comeback?
Yeah, I think that you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit to operate more than one business and do it well. Most of my companies are real estate related, and so I divide my real estate properties into different companies based on the property type. So one of my companies is for commercial real estate, another company is for residential real estate, another company is for multifamily real estate. I also own a real estate brokerage that funds my real estate development companies. And then I own a real estate education company called Comma Club Community, where I provide literature and courses to help train others about how to do what I do, and how to share the wins and successes amongst a group of people that are all on the same trajectory together. And so I would just encourage anyone that wants to own a business to just really focus on what you're doing and do it well before you start to expand to other companies. And I think any entrepreneur would tell you that you don't want to juggle multiple entities if you haven't mastered the one that's bringing in the most revenue. And so by focusing, you want to only expand if you are using one entity to fund the next entity. You want each company to be helping build the next company. And so just having focus, having intention and focus and commitment will allow you to be able to grow and build and expand your reach, even into different industries and different markets. I'm happy to say that I was able to expand out of real estate into the music industry, which is my passion, and create a music production company. So I was also able to take the profits from my entities and reinvest them into music production, and to have artists that I now manage and help produce their records. To me, that's a dream come true, because it's this evolution of my life of being able to take my personal passions, create an unrelated business that then funds my life, builds assets for my children, but then also funds my dreams. I think that's the ultimate goal, is that we're not just working to pay our bills, but we're generating enough income and equity to be able to build our children's lives, and to be able to give us the fulfillment to do what God created us to do, and to have the freedom to enjoy our passions outside of our 9 to 5.
Huge congratulations to you for having so many entities. And I really do commend you for everything that you're doing, because again, I'm very inspired. I feel my soul set on fire as I hear about, one, the various avenues in which you're building wealth, and then two, as you said, working on fulfilling and funding your dream. Earlier, you had talked about greed, right? And this idea of people not helping their brothers. And it's very clear to me that you are someone who is centered on service. That's very, very clear. But when you hear on a piece of paper and there's a profile of someone who owns a bunch of companies and we're talking about profits and funding and life, and then adding in the music and going into different sectors, it could from the outside appear greedy, where do you reckon with building your wealth for your children and your family and having material wealth?
So I understand the power of wealth, and I also understand the importance of wealth. As a child, I was terrified of being wealthy. I actually would get these publisher clearinghouse letters in the mail saying that they were going to bring us a check for $1 million. And I would take those letters and rip them up and hide them at the bottom of the trash can because I was afraid that if we earned a lot of money or if we won the lottery, that our whole family would fall apart and we would lose our love for God and that we would just become these evil people. And so I attributed wealth to evil. And I think that I was misguided in that because over time and through growing my relationship with God, I've learned that to whom much is given, much is required. And God will give wealth to certain individuals that he knows their hearts have been shaped in a way that he can use them to help others. He can use them to build his kingdom and to focus on his mission. And so throughout my life, I've gone through a number of humbling experiences that have shown me that money is not the answer to happiness. Money is not the answer, and material things don't really give you the sense of fulfillment that you think it will when you have it. I've been homeless twice. I have worked at a corporate company, traveling the world with an expense account. And I've also waited tables and scrubbed toilets and been treated like the scum of the earth. And I've lived in different life experiences that have shown me it's really about your character. It's really about your heart. It's really about the relationships that you have with people that give your life value and not the amount of money that you have in your bank account. There was a time where God told me to quit my job and to walk away from everything I had gone to college to do and to earn, to go and pursue my life passion of writing. And that left me without a car, without a home, waiting tables and scrubbing toilets. But I was so happy. I would actually walk to work dancing and singing because there was joy in my heart that was not attributed to the amount of money that was in my bank account. However, I also understand that the great weight of responsibility of my community is on my shoulders. And you have to have money to address these very large, very chronic problems. And so I'm not afraid to be wealthy. In fact, I know that I must be wealthy. I know that I must own properties because that will give me access to great wealth to be able to have great impact. And so now if I look at a $10 million deal, I wouldn't even blink at it. In fact, I look at an entire city from an aerial perspective, looking down on it, and I still think that developing an entire city is small in comparison to the whole world that is available to us. So I think the more that you focus on God, the smaller dollar amount seem, the less important a number on a bank account seems. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. You're focusing on a God that's so big that nothing is impossible, and he's going to provide you the resources no matter how much you need or how little you need. And so I would just encourage others, don't worry about greed. Worry about loving others. Worry about impacting your community. Don't be afraid to possess wealth. Just be responsible and have integrity. And then God can trust you with great amounts of wealth. And then my final piece of advice is be generous. Generosity is the greatest way to humble yourself. Every piece of dollar that comes in my hand, I pretty much, before I can get excited about it, God is telling me to give it away to someone. And so that breaks this relationship that I have with money because I never really see it as mine. We don't live an excessive, lavish lifestyle. We're responsible in the sense that we are constantly reinvesting what we earn either into our own businesses or into others around us in ways that we can help support others to break out of poverty and to achieve their dreams as well.
Oh, I love that. I think what really, and I touched upon this in the beginning, but what really pulled me to you was that from my vantage point, you seem to have unlocked this balance that I think all of us are searching, but I am actively searching for within these dimensions that I developed, this Ceph philosophy that I'm going to keep preaching about in regard to having balance and achieving success, from a spiritual standpoint, an emotional standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a physical standpoint, taking care of our bodies. Is there a particular dimension in where you feel extremely strong and on fire? And in that same vein, is there a particular dimension where you hope to develop more?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing when I think about my history, I feel that I'm very stable emotionally. And I have gone through a lot of things that would cause people to lose sleep, that would be very disruptive to people emotionally. Just before I got on this call, I was sitting with a contractor that told me our bid is going to double and that I need to come up with $80,000, and then I walk out of that meeting into here and I have a smile on my face, because I think that emotional strength and stability is needed to be able to manage a company. You cannot be all over the place in the sense of being reactive to things that happen to you. You have to be rooted in a sense of peace and knowing that God has it all under control and that your future is going to be better than your past. Spiritually, I understand that my life is governed and rooted in Jesus Christ. And if people could just follow that model of submitting your life to the God that created you and living in radical obedience, you will get great outcomes, because he knows, he's been around since the beginning of time. He's seen it all. He knows how to get through the toughest problems that we can't even fathom how to get through. He already knows the way through. He also knows the brightest ideas. He gives them to us. We just have to have the faith to receive them and take action when he gives them to us. And for me, I think that's one of my strengths is just having this extraordinary faith in obeying what God tells me to do. But I would say with my physical health, I wish I could eat better. I try to make it a priority, especially as I'm getting older, to change my diet and to focus on nutrition, which I'm not doing a good job at, if I'll be honest. We need a body. We can be as great as we want spiritually, but we need a body, and we have to take care of the body that God has given us. And so I try to work out, 3 or 4 times a week and go for walks with my kids and walk my dog and try to stay active. But being a busy career woman can make it difficult to have the active life that I see in my dreams. So I'm working on that one.
Well, I can absolutely relate. Physical is where I'm working on strengthening myself as well. And I really just, I want to thank you so much for inspiring us today with your wisdom, your empowerment, your divine strength, and moreover, your unwavering commitment to transforming communities. I'm going to be sure to link your book, your website, your contact information in the show notes for this podcast, so anyone can find you and reach out. And I appreciate you bringing your smile and whole heart here today, because speaking to you has been truly electrifying and so inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ella, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you on your wonderful podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening in to Eavesdrop with Ella. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, rate, or review Eavesdrop with Ella on your favorite podcast platform. While you're at it, you should also send this episode to a friend so we can connect with more eavesdroppers just like you. If you'd like to be a guest, you can visit ellaparlor.com to learn more. Until next time, this is Ella Parlor reminding you to stay resilient, stay abundant, and above all, stay balanced. Thank you for eavesdropping, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Eavesdrop with Ella, a production of EP Consulting. Some of the products and services mentioned are paid promotions, and any advice should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Opinions and ideas are for entertainment purposes only and belong to EP Consulting. All rights reserved.